Let's move on here to some of our sleepers, Kyle. Good way to pivot here because we're going to talk about early. We're each going to share an early second round sleeper, a guy we feel like could help now, an undrafted flyer, and then a bargain bin DVD, as you called it, Kyle, for a deeper cut player. So let's start off with an early second round steal. And I'm going to bring up the first one, Jason Preston out of Ohio, because this is one of those guys that I could see making sense for Phoenix at the 29th pick. Junior out of Ohio. He's in that late first, early second round stage. 6'3" guard, really good passer, knows how to play with pace, knows how to control the game, can shoot a little bit. I've been told in pre-draft workouts, he's looked really great. He's really impressed teams, both in interviews and with workouts. So Jason Preston, for me, is one of those guys that just seems like a rock solid NBA player that checks a lot of the boxes with playmaking, solid defense, awareness, intelligence, work ethic, good kid. You know, it's like a lot of the things that you look for in an early second round player. So Jason Preston is the first one that stands out for me. How about yourself?
I like him. My second, my steal, not sure where he's going to go, but I think this player has been overlooked. There have been questions about his feel, his readiness to play at the top level. I've said it maybe in another place, but Isaiah Todd from the G League Ignite, I think, is a 6'10" guy. If you watch him shoot the ball, you just don't see guys shoot that fluidly. I think I wouldn't be surprised if somebody takes him late first round just because of that, because I think he could shoot with movement. He's shown that he can shoot out of the post. Just a really talented player as a scorer. And I think if you can get a player like that late, if you can get a player like that, if you're a good team and you can just snag somebody like that with upside, you do it because that's he's that talented of a shooter, in my opinion.
I have him ranked 24th on my board. Is that too high, too low, just right?
I wondered if Charks and I had influenced you because he and I had been kind of whispering about there. You have those moments where you kind of just like you have to just kind of recheck and make sure your eyes aren't lying to you. I don't think so. The more I watched Jalen Green, the more I kept thinking about, he's one of those prospects that catches your attention and diverts your attention. Like, because he pops, his shooting pops and he's a joy to watch shoot the ball, to be honest with you. I think there are just kind of questions about his idea of himself. I know there were questions about his workouts that he was scheduling where he thought he should go, which had people kind of wondering, does he have maybe a misplaced idea of himself? I don't know. I have no idea on that one, but I think he's a talented player.
Let's go with my guy who can help now in the second round. Herb Jones out of Alabama. I love this dude with all of my heart, Kyle. I have a basketball crush on Jones. 6'6". He can defend across positions. He plays hard. He can't shoot, but he can do everything else. He can defend. He can bring the ball up the court. He can rebound for his size. He can finish inside. He can pass. I foresee him as one of those guys who is just a basketball player. He doesn't really have, like, he defends across positions on defense, and then on offense, he's used like a center. He's screening, he's rolling, he's hanging around in the dunker spot. At worst, he's like your Andre Robertson, but I don't think he's a total lost cause as a shooter. He just shoots at a low volume. He shot 35% on 57 three-pointers. Not a lot of shots because he's not a good shooter, but I don't think he's like a total zero as a shooter. So I don't know, man. I love Jones. I'd be happy to take him in the late first round, but I expect him to go somewhere in the second round. And I think he's one of those guys who's going to look like a steal early on in his career.
He was the engine of a very good college basketball offense. And I think he needs to get a little stronger, but I agree with you. If he gets on a team with like a lot of shooting, he could give you like lineup flexibility if you have like big shooters. Yeah, I agree. My guy is sort of in the, I hate doing this, but my guy he's in sort of a Bruce Brown mold is what I was going to say. One of your favorite molds from this past season, KOC. Aaron Henry from Michigan State. This guy is a dogged on-ball defender. He's not a great shooter right now. That's the big thing. Sort of similar to Bruce Brown. Very, very strong base. I think he knows his role. I think he's just a guy that could eagerly guard, tough assignments. He's somebody that you'd like to have on your roster. Aaron Henry from Michigan State.
I'm into that one. Let's move on to undrafted flyers here. I got RAIQUAN Gray from Florida State. We've seen a number of prospects come out of Florida State recently, have some early success in the NBA. Gray kind of fits a similar profile of Herb Jones in the sense that 6'6", undersized, doesn't shoot well. A lot of the same things. He's got a big, like, football player body, very wide, broad shoulders, very strong.
Huge.
Yeah. And we have a comparison in the draft guide, call him ground bound Zion Williamson. They use him like Zion. Like, you know, the plays with Zion where they kind of hand the ball off to him at the top of the key and he just rumbles towards the basket.
Yeah.
The Seminoles were using those same exact sets for Gray. And it works because he's good at it. He can handle with size and strength. He's just not like a rocket ship leaper like Zion. But I see an NBA role for Gray because of his defensive ability, because he can handle, and because he can score inside. So I'm liking Gray as one of those guys who could be an undrafted steal.
26% 3-point shooter, but 268 pounds, 6'10" wingspan. He could be like a Grant Williams type, depending on how high his basketball IQ is, how you want to project him like that. Interesting player. I mean, he's a bruiser. They probably could have used him on the football team, to be honest. My guy is this. This is a random one, maybe for most people. I would kind of use an Exhibit 10 on this guy. Santiago Aldama was a pretty prominent international prospect a couple years ago, was really on the radar. For some reason, he decided to go to Loyola of Maryland, because I think he had a connection there. But you turn it on and you watch him, and the league that he's playing in, he shoots an incredibly easy ball for a 6'11" guy. He moves pretty well for how big he is. He's a gamble, but I mean, he's the type of player. I wish he had gone to a high major program because I just wanted to see it. But really interesting player, Santi Aldama. Go check him out. He could shoot it.
He's fun. I mean, he can play for sure. Yeah. He has skill. If he's not an NBA player, he's going to be a high level guy overseas.
For sure.
Like, there's no doubt about that. My bargain bin DVD, which is the title you came up with for this category, is a guy that I don't have in my top 70. And I had him in consideration on my big forward for the top 70. And that's Chandler VAUDRIN, kind of a jumbo size guard, 6'7", out of Winthrop. Played 2 seasons there. This past year averaged 12 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, the Evan Turner stat line. VAUDRIN, he shoots 37% from 3 on 2 attempts per game, 69% from the line. But his shot is freaking ugly, man. It's a gross looking jump shot. And I saw a quote from him a couple years ago. Catch this, Kyle.
Okay.
Where he says he's a righty.
Oh,
but he
Jesus.
shoots lefty because he thought it was cool. That's what he did growing up.
Creative thinker.
But he's a natural righty. And I think, much like a certain all-NBA player, I think he has better touch with his right hand. He looks more comfortable with his right hand around the rim. He looks more comfortable passing with his right hand. I'm just saying, Chandler VAUDRIN shoots with the wrong hand. And if Chandler VAUDRIN switches hands, I would undoubtedly have him ranked in my top 70 because his playmaking ability is outstanding, dude. I've had people from teams that have worked him out say, yeah, this guy, like, he can make passes all over the court at a high level, even compared to some of the best passers in this class. But the shooting is bad. And with that said, I'd love to take a crack at him, with a 2-way or an Exhibit 10, like you said, a summer league tryout opportunity, and say, hey, Chandler, switch hands, and you can be an NBA player for 10 years. That's what I would tell him, and maybe it works out. Maybe it works out. Chandler VAUDRIN. Remember that name if he switches hands.
His defensive points per possession are pretty solid, 0.68. I mean, that's pretty. He's got good size. I wonder. Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. You want to move on to my bargain bin?
Yes, your bargain bin. Yep.
I was big on the bargain like software, like the games at Walmart. You'd go in there, they'd be like in the little jewel case. You might find like Age of Empires or Grand Theft Auto. You never knew what you were going to find. This one, KOC, I'm going to set you up for this because you and I had a pretty funny exchange about this the other day. My bargain bin DVD is a fella from Belgium, a 6'10" guard from Belgium. And this guy is like if you had locked if you locked a 6'10" Belgium kid in a room for 5 years and he only watched LaMelo Ball highlights, you would end up with VRENZ Bleijenbergh, a.k.a. PMP, a.k.a. Poor Man's Poku. Kevin, what are your thoughts on VRENZ Bleijenbergh?
He just tweets too much. He just tweets too much.
That's it?
Yeah, he tweets too much for a second round pick who's days away from being drafted. Why are you responding to mock drafts and big boards and tweets about
He's
people?
mad.
I just think it's a little bit too much for a second round pick to be doing that. And like to bring this back to us acting as GMs. If I'm a GM, I'm bumping them down my board. It's like I want my second round picks not to be online.
Don't you think I was pitching this to Verrier and Mahoney and Sharks, though? I mean, don't you think we're knocking him a little bit for things that we praised Poku for? Because Poku was pretty similar. We'd watch him, and I mean, it was like comedy at times, like how he 100% is like off the charts erratic. Like but he's a very colorful, obviously has good feel. Like he has a lot of that experimental sort of DNA in his basketball identity, you know, but he's a big time like a project. If you drafted him, you would it'd be the G League. It'd be, we're going to work on your shot. He has like pronounced drift in his jump shot. He makes horrible passes, but he's very fluid for a guy that big.
Yes, 6'10", he can move. And I think you called him Poor Man's Poku.
Yes, PMP, Poor Man's Poku.
I think I'm going to add that comp in the draft guide. That's a good comp because all I have is Sasha Vezenkov in there right now, who my friend Tom Westerholm, a Celtics writer, said today, like, who? That's helpful. So we need to change that name to somebody more familiar. That's a name from like the 13 or 14 draft who never panned out. Poor Man's Poku. I like it, Kyle.